I've got a deck list so good for y'all today. I recorded two different intros. But first, pop quiz time. If you have two Captain Marvels on your side of the board, will they work together to win you the game? We're going to talk about this and a few other little mechanics in today's video to make sure that you are prepared for what is going to be the current meta. Now, today's deck list is a little bit different because usually when I put out a video showcasing a deck, I get questions like, hey, what substitutions can I make? But today's video is actually a list recommended to me from a user named Spacewack. He called it his secret sauce. He said, hey, I think you'll like it. It's pretty awesome. I gave it a test drive, and my goodness, it's pretty sick. Now, I played with it early on and had a lot of success, but I spent about another 10 to 12 hours with it over this weekend, and that's why I'm recording a different intro, because I just want to talk about it a little bit more in depth now that I understand the deck that much more. Now, the intro and breakdown is going to be a little bit longer because I want to really discuss a lot of the mechanics in the game that I think the community needs to know. But if you just want to jump to the game highlights, I will put the timestamp on screen and in the description below, and you can jump over to that. Now, I'm going to put three different deck lists on the screen. If you've been playing lately, they probably look familiar. And if they don't look familiar to you, well, they will. This archetype has really been popularized by Lambie series, and it's just such a strong list, especially in the right hand. Now, I've played all three of them. They are all super solid, all strong, but they're not exactly my cup of tea. Now, the deck list today is about 5 cards off of those lists. And when you're talking about a 12 card deck, 5 cards is a lot. I mean, it's basically a whole new deck. And what the difference is here is that, yes, we are trying to leverage the early power that we can put out with a list like this, but we are locking our opponent down with a wave on turn 5 saying, hey, you're only going to be able to play 1 card on the final turn. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the deck. We'll break each card down. But after that, I want to talk about several other things like snapping, your bad matchups, and some mechanics that you really need to know now that Captain Marvel is so popular. Now, our first card in the deck list is Nebula, and she's definitely solid. The only issue is that there are so many Killmongers around. So if you find yourself not getting much value out of your 1-drop, I would suggest substituting in Iceman. That way, if he gets blown up, he at least had some value in the game. If you wanted to run Sunspot, you can. I just don't think you're going to get as much value. Yes, you're trying to play Wave on turn 5, so you could get a few power. But ultimately, I would stick with Nebula or Iceman in this deck list. Our first 2-drop is definitely Kraven. And usually, no matter the game, if he's down early, he usually got a pretty good stat line by the end of the game. But he can get insanely huge, especially with all the movement that's going on right now. It's not impossible for him to get in Shang range pretty easily. You do have a lot of ways to buff Kraven in your list. You are running things like Jeff and Silk and Captain Marvel. And if you get lucky, you can pull Spider-Man in your opponent's card into his lane for +4 power. Now, like I said, something to keep in mind is that Captain Marvel moving to his lane at the end of the game does in fact buff him. So that's something that you need to keep in mind as you're calculating your final turn. But also keep in mind that usually you don't want to play Captain Marvel on top of Kraven so that she has the ability to move and buff him at the end of the game. Now, Jeff, look, everybody knows Jeff great. If you don't have Jeff, you're just missing out. I don't know how else to say it. There is no substitution for what he can do. He's amazing. There's nothing he can't do. Silk is our last 2-drop, and she is a great cost to power ratio. She is able to buff up your Kraven by constantly bouncing into him, and then playing Storm and, just having locations that you can't get into. Being able to bounce Silk into those locations is really great, but just know that Silk can also bounce where you don't want her to go. But the more you play this card, the more you can kind of mitigate the RNG that is with this card. We are running Storm here. We are trying to control a lane, and there are a lot of different things that you can do. You can just play Storm out and not play anything behind her because you're planning on bouncing a Silk or a Spider-Man or Captain Marvel, or you're trying to wave into Doctor Doom on the final turn. You have a lot of different ways to get into your flooded location that hopefully your opponents do not have. Now we are to the card that really separates this deck list from all the other movement lists that are out there, and something that really leverages the strength of this deck. Now, if you are able to put out a ton of stats during the middle part of the game, you drop the wave into a Doctor Doom, and your opponents just can't keep up. Plus, if you have things like Kraven and Captain Marvel already out, you're able to put more power out and move things around when your opponent can only just sit there and play their one card and watch the mayhem unfold. And I feel like this card is actually really strong into the other movement cards because a lot of times they're wanting to play a bunch of things out on turn 6. If they're playing the good card version, they're usually black bolting you on turn 5, and they're wanting to play a Miles Morales, a Statue, or Kitty Pryde they've been buffing, and whatever else they can get out on that turn 6. And you hit them with this wave, especially if you're surprising them for the first time and they're just, oh, I get to pick one card. It really just shuts them down. We do have the new and improved Spider-Man. This is such a good card if you're able to bounce him and your opponent's card into your Kraven lane. You're going to give him +4 power. You can use him to do some tricky things. Granted, you are kind of high rolling with this card at times. One thing I do want to note, though, is that it was confirmed that Spider-Man prioritizes locations that are empty. And so I'm a visual learner. Let me put a board on the screen here. If you'll notice here, your opponent's got a full location on the right, and you both have locations that are empty in the middle. If you were to play Spider-Man to the left, Spider-Man is going to go to the middle every time because y'all both have an empty location. Now, if we look at the second scenario here, same thing. If you were to play Spider-Man on the left, the Spider-Man is going to move to the far right because that is the only available spot for him to move, but he will not move your opponent's cards, obviously, right? So he does prioritize empty locations over anything else. If you both have an empty location, that's where he is going to go because he wants to move and drag a card. Outside of that, he is going to move to an empty location that he can move to, whether he can move your opponent's cards or not. We are running Shang-Chi. SpaceWax told me that on ladder, he was running America Chavez, but for Conquest, depending on what he was seeing a lot of, he was teching in Shang-Chi or Enchantress. I personally like Shang-Chi in this spot. We do have Captain Marvel here. She is such a great card in general. She is really amazing in this deck list, but there are a few mechanics with her that I feel like a lot of the community still doesn't understand, so we're going to talk about that after the deck list breakdown. But she can do all kind of things. She takes the guesswork out, especially if the game is close. She can move to your Kraven that will buff him. She's just an all-around great card, especially in this type of archetype. We do have Miles as our third and final 4 cost. Anytime you can play a 1 cost 5 power card is kind of a no-brainer, especially in a list like this. Now, something to keep in mind, because you're going to make the mistake, I make it, I do it all the time, is making sure that you move cards when you should to activate him, especially if you're wanting to play him on turn 5 with wave. You better make sure that you move Jeff or something else on turn 4, otherwise he's just going to sit in your hand and you're going to be sad. Now, we are running Dr. Doom. There are not a whole lot better cards to be playing behind wave than this right here. You're able to put basically 13 power out across 3 lanes and go wide when your opponent can only play 1 card. We are leveraging wave a ton, and this card just kind of goes over the top on that final turn. And ultimately, our last card is Magneto. Now, previously, Magneto wasn't really a card you saw a whole lot of, maybe in Lockjaw, but Magneto steals cubes and wins game. He can move so much power around, especially if you're playing something like Silver Surfer. If you have priority, there have been times I've moved a Wong or a Lockjaw and really screwed my opponent. But I think you're about to see Magneto get really popular because I think people are starting to understand just how good he is inside of these move lists. Like I said, he can move cards around, but if you play him on top of your Kraven and you can pull another 1 or 2 cards to that lane, you're buffing your Kraven just that much more. He's a strong card. He's got some mechanics, some utility. And yeah, I think you need to get prepared for him. So before we jump into the game highlights, there are a few things that I want to talk about. I want to make sure that the community is prepared not only to play decks like these, but also to play against them, because there's some mechanics that I feel like the community is still a little confused about, especially when it comes to Captain Marvel. And I want to make sure that you're ready to go. So I asked a question at the start of the video about 2 Captain Marvels, but I'm going to ask another one. In a mirror match where you and your opponent both have Captain Marvels, which one resolves their turn first? The answer is that whichever one is played out first. That means in a mirror, it is so important for you to play your Captain Marvel second. That's because when the game ends, the first Captain Marvel played out is going to resolve her turn and look for a win, meaning that the person that holds their Captain Marvel the longest gets the final say-so in the board state. So if you play your second after your opponent's Captain Marvel has moved, she will then get to move and then win the game if she can. So let's talk about the question I asked at the start of the video. If you have two Captain Marvels on your side of the board, will they work together to win you the game? Now, let's put the board state on here. Let's say that cloning vats popped up and you were able to generate 2 copies of Captain Marvel. You're losing by 7 on the left, you're losing by 6 in the middle, and you're blowing them out by 20 on the right. You may be tempted to think that if both Captain Marvels move to the left, you will win the game. And if you snapped on that, you are going to be out some Qs because that is not how Captain Marvel works. So what's going to happen is that each Captain Marvel is going to work independently of themselves. So the first Captain Marvel that you played out, at the end of the game, the text reads, move to a location that wins you the game if possible. So she's going to look at the state of the board and say, there's nowhere that I move to that wins the location, so she's going to stay put. Then the right Captain Marvel is going to do the same thing. She's like, is there anywhere that I can move that wins the game? The answer is still no, because her moving to the left or the middle does not win the game. They do not think collectively and go, hey, if we both move to the left, we're going to win you the game. I know that is something completely uncommon that doesn't come up a lot, but don't lose cubes over it. The more you know. Now, let's talk about a couple other things. Let's talk about snapping. On ladder, I feel like if you have a good start, if you're able to put out decent stats early on and you have wave in hand, you need to be snapping. Your opponent's probably not going to expect it because none of the lists are running it, and they're not prepared to play that turn 6 out like you are if you've got Dr. Doom or Magneto in hand. Now, in Conquest, it is a little bit different because it's like once you show the trick play that you're going to do, they're not going to fall for it again, right? So the first time that you show wave, that you're going to hit them with wave, you really need to be taxing them and getting every cube that you can, hopefully at least 4, sometimes 8. I do find myself needing to be overly aggressive with this deck when it comes to snapping, just because the surprise of wave is really important here. So when we talk about decks being great and how strong they are, it's also important to acknowledge some of the bad matchups. So with this deck list especially, anything that just puts out a ton of power into 2 lanes is usually going to be able to beat you. If you run into a big Shuri that's dropping a 28 powered Red Skull and Taskmaster, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. And I will say probably the worst matchup that I played with this deck is against Tai Evo. They're floating Sunspot. They're hitting you with Cyclops. And Wave ultimately probably benefits them because they're able to float again on the final turn as they're smashing down that massive Hulk, who is then going to get buffed because they floated on turn 6. You're kind of dead in the water with that. Another bad matchup, or I say bad, a little bit tricky, is Thanos control, especially if they got Professor X and they lock down a lane. It just makes it feel a lot more crowded when you're only in those 2 lanes. And ultimately, if they Professor X your Captain Marvel, she's not doing anything for you because she is stuck in that lane. She will not move out of it at the end of the game. We are now finally going to jump into the game highlights. I do know the intro is a little bit longer, but this is a deck list that I really fell in love with and really enjoy. And I wanted to make sure that the community understands some of the finer mechanics so that they are prepared, because these deck lists, they're going to be popular for a while. So as always, gang, y'all be good, y'all be safe. I will catch y'all in the next video. If you like the video, please help me out. Click that like and subscribe button, and I'll see y'all around. And again, I did want to thank Spacewhax for recommending me this list. I've really enjoyed it, and so shout outs to him for this again. Do we want to storm X Mansion and just not deal? I think we do. I don't want luck to be the determining factor of this match, so we got a Dr. Doom. Unfortunate, you know. I sure hope this isn't some living tribunal, because I don't have really any way of dealing with it other than like Shang-Chi and the okay, so this is like a Nimrod thing. Is that what you're telling me? It's like a Nimrod thing going on here. Now next turn, yeah, okay. You know, guys, maybe I take the Nimrod to the left, huh? am I willing to snap on it? Yes, I am. Why? Because I've played too much Conquest. I just don't care anymore. Don't do this, guys. It's like a 1 in 3, probably a 1 in 4 chance. I don't even hit Nimrod. Yeah, 1 in 4. But if I got the other card, oh! Oh.
Enough said, bub.
Well. I think we still get it, though. We still get it. We still get it. We still get it. He don't have no. We still get there. We got there. We got there. Barely. We got there. Oh. Lord have mercy. All right, so we have to hold lot of roller coaster emotions right there in a real quick time. We gotta hold Storm for his magic because I don't really have any other tech against him. All right, that's a good one. So he had 2 good rounds, but he only got 1 Q from us. We got 1. We're back. We're back. Oh. Now. I was gonna say we could have 2 locations locked down, but again, we just don't want to do anything too crazy. I don't want to drop Storm and then him drop magic. I've got priority, so even if I guessed right, I'd still lose. Still nothing. Okay. I feel like we have to do this. We can Storm this next turn. See what happens. All right, yeah. We're snapping here. I'm shutting this down. I guess he could play a magic. Oh, I hope that's not magic.
Wind, aid my hand.
Okay, so it's not. Let's say he plays a Venom and a Carnage. What if we did this? And we pull it, because he would Carnage here, right? And it would be a 9, so we would lose. Yeah, I think I might have actually, yeah, so it's a Venom and a Carnage. Oh no! We got him. The Captain Marvel's gonna get him. Whew. I don't know if that was, if I would have played Magneto here, it would have pulled. That's what I needed a minute. If I had played Magneto, he would have pulled the Deathlock. And so this would have ended up being a 6, and then this would have ended up being 9 and 6, so 15. Either way, I guess wins. All right. A lot of altered death lately. We do have a Storm. We got a Silk. We got a Jeff. We can get there. We can get in there. A lot of die-in today, huh? Well, we got a Captain Marvel too. This is probably a good snappable. Go ahead and snap. They haven't snapped. I stand corrected. But we got Captain Marvel, we got Wave, we got Doctor Doom. I'm feeling kind of good about it. Feeling kind of good about it. Oh yeah, next turn we're gonna Nebula Wave, right? That was a Sauron, so I mean we got what, a Shuri? They may have an armor. That they do. Okay. If we all cards cost 4. Just playing one here will get me the win, right? Well, I say the win. It's gonna let me play 2 cards. And we can just play a Shang-Chi and a Doctor Doom. I'm good with it. Oh, Lord. And I should have priority here. Maybe. They've got priority. Well, all they can do is play armor. So if they play armor, that's fine. Surely that's not what they're gonna do. How is that their play? They were just gonna float? For 8 cubes? For 8? Well, this was a good board for us. One and done. One and done. All right. My favorite thing to see. Not a Thanos gamer. I don't have anything against Thanos. I like Thanos. It's one of those things. It's kind of like Patriot. I don't like playing against, you know. I also don't like Mindscape. You want to change that for me? Would you? Oh, what am I asking them to do it for? I can do it. Thank you. I'll do it. I'll do it myself. Speaking about Thanos, I'll do it myself. Is he got a way to get rid of it too? Is this a magic or something? Yeah, we both didn't want that. All right, we got the Captain Marvel out. Is this a Silver Surfer? Yeah. Okay. This is actually really good, I think. Because I can Magneto. We'll wave into Magneto. Oh, I think we even snap here. Because if he juggernauts me off of it, I'm just gonna Magneto the hub later.
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here.
Yeah, okay. Hey, I know Silver Surfer. It's my list. So we wave, and I think we wave and Nebula. Let's see what happens here. I'm interested. He can only do one thing here. I wish we had Kraven down. We get some points. But I mean, oof, he can move Jeff. I didn't think about him moving Jeff. That's still 11. We'd be at 12. Dang, I hope we don't pull all these freaking broodlings to the left. And I think we might. I think we might have screwed up a little bit. Yeah. It's gonna depend. Okay. If we would have hit the Juggernaut and left Killmonger, I don't know. I can't do the math. I guess if we would have pulled Juggernaut, she would have went over and won it. Yeah. Well, I definitely like Magneto into Silver Surfer. I guess we're Kraven and then Jeff and hope they don't have Brood. Or we just storm it. The odds of them beating us to the wrap is probably pretty good. Doesn't make me feel better if it's a Brood.
Wind, aid my hand.
So I guess we're gonna do the same thing here. Let's do this. Hopefully he don't drop Brood. I really wanted to play Spider-Man and slide something to Kraven, you know? All right, so same thing again. We can play this, and this, and pull a Magneto. I think we're gonna snap him and make him feel bad. We don't have the wave this time, but we do have Magneto, I like Magneto. Now we're not getting the buff. Where are we going? Where are we going? Okay, all right, I'm about it.
All systems go.
So here. The only bad thing, I think we're okay though. We may not even pull anything. We've definitely won the flooded. Silk is probably going to the flooded, and so we have to win with 12, 13. I don't even know what that is. 25 power. Struggling today. Struggling today. What's gonna suck is if like I pull Juggernaut and somehow cost myself. But I don't think I am. I think we snapped. Well, what is this? Oh, if that would have went back right, that'd have been awesome. Magneto, which I mean, Magneto didn't really do anything. Actually made the right lane closer, but if he would have played Killmonger here, this would be a 6 and we would have tied, but I think we would have won the tiebreaker.